All right, John Libretti, welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate you having us, man. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for making time. This is the first time we're meeting face to face, but obviously we have a bunch of mutuals. I've heard great things about you. So you're the founder of JL Capital, which is a commercial debt brokerage.
Yep, correct.
So for the people that don't know specifically what that is, how would you describe that to them and what goes into that whole industry?
So we basically provide consulting services and debt and equity advisory services for primarily commercial real estate operators, right? So I would say pretty much 9 out of every 10 individuals or institutions that are buying buildings, they're getting some form of debt on it, right? We help clients underwrite the deal. We look at all the different factors of what's the max loan amount that it could support. What is the property actually based on our underwriting? Are they offering a little too high? Do we think it's in line? We'll underwrite the deal high level, and we work hand in hand with our clients to get their deal in the package in front of banks, credit unions, life insurance companies, agency lenders, CMBS lenders, all different types of lending institutions. We compose like a loan matrix of a handful of different options, and we figure out which the path makes the most sense for the client to move forward with, and then we work with them from process A to Z, get the deal signed up, get an appraisal situated, set up an environmental inspection, and kind of just go through the process with the bank in order to get the loan approved, and then ultimately we close and we charge a consulting fee. We usually charge somewhere, just depends on the deal, but usually 1% to 2% of the committed loan amount.
Nice.
Now it's kind of like in a nutshell what we do.
Yeah. So you're basically like the middleman, right?
Exactly.
Like the person or
we're connecting A to B. We're not lending the money. It's not our money. We have the relationships, obviously, with the clients that, are looking for financing.
Yeah.
And we have long-lasting relationships with all different types of lenders. Again, certain deals are done with banks and credit unions. Some deals are done with DSCR lenders. There's all facets of hard money and bridge loans.
Mm-hmm.
We've done deals with life insurance companies and CMBS lenders and agency lenders. So, we have connections on both sides, and we just kind of pair the best fit, right? Put A with B, and middlemaning is I think you can make $1 billion being a middleman.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, like Uber, for example, they don't own any cars.
Yeah, I've seen that on it. So they say Uber doesn't own any cars, Spotify doesn't own any music.
Yeah, it's genius. It's like
100%.
that monthly reoccurring or whatever service it is.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Who's your ideal client? Would you say?
I would say ideal client. I mean, I work with guys. I work with individuals that, they're buying their first investment property, but I also work with clients that I do 10, 15 transactions a year for.
Wow.
Some of my clients own, 3 single family rentals. Some of my clients own 8,500 apartments in one city alone.
Damn.
Right. So, I would say the ideal client is, it's not really based on how much you own, big, small, or medium. Somebody that's just actively shopping debt options for either their portfolio or properties that they're looking to refinance or buildings they're looking to acquire. Because, a lot of people don't even know the loan options that are out there.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes way to, without getting too granular, instead of taking a hard money loan, you could take a DSCR loan and you could buy the prepayment penalty all the way down. You'll end up with the same exact thing, a longer term, and probably 2% or 1.5% cheaper on rate. So there's different, I think a lot of people just don't fully know what's out there or how to kind of, position the deal or pitch the deal in order to gain more, efficient and effective terms.
For sure. So I want to dive into this deeper. First, I want to kind of go back to how you originally got into that industry. So if you want to walk me through kind of your upbringing, childhood, you could touch on, but what led you to get into the industry, and then what took you to
what I
today?
got you here. Okay.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Middletown, Monmouth County. I was born in Staten Island. We lived in Brooklyn until I was about 6 years old.
Nice.
We moved to Jersey in 2002. Lived in Middletown, went to all Middletown school system, Middletown South. Graduated there in 2014. I then went to Quinnipiac University in Connecticut, which was a ton of fun. Graduated there in 2018. During college, I was kind of, I was going to class, but I was doing anything I could to make money. So I'd met a bunch of landlords, and I would rent their houses out to girls and guys that I went to school with, and the landlords would give me the first month's rent as a commission. So I did that.
So it was kind of the first step into.
Yeah, it was.
If you even were aware of it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was just in college, and I remember my mom would give me this credit card and it had a $500 limit.
Yeah.
and I would just bang that thing out by like the fourth or fifth day of the month. And my mom was like, "I'm not funding your good time." So like, if you figure it out, you got to make money. So I met some guys doing that. I had a lot of friends that went to Quinnipiac with me, but they were from like North Haven, Connecticut, a couple towns over. So they were local and they knew a lot of landlords in the area. Like everybody was pretty well connected, and it was a small school. It was like 6,000 people.
Okay.
So like everybody kind of knew everybody in the town. So yeah, I met a couple landlords. I was renting out their houses. There was 3 guys, 2 of which owned like double-digit number of houses each.
Wow.
And I was doing that for a while. I pretty much did that actually like my sophomore year until I graduated. One of the guys that owned a rental house, he owned real estate in New Haven, Connecticut, which is where we went out. That was like the nearest town. And he was like, "I'm going to open this club. Could you help me promote it?" There was a kid named Jason that I went to college with. He was a year younger than me. And he was actually the one who approached me with the idea. We both knew the guy. He was like, "Look, I'll get kids to go to the club from my grade." And he's like, "You kind of help your grade out. And when you're in college, like there's a new club. It's not that hard to get people to go."
No,
you know what I mean?
That's everyone's
you're
goal
going,
at the end of the week. Yeah.
Exactly. So like we started doing that. This is probably like semester 1 of junior year. And the place opened. We bring people there. A couple weeks goes by, we're getting free drinks, free bottles, free table. You're in college, you're like 19, 20, like you look like the man, like 21, that's enough. Then at one point, so many people started going that we kind of negotiated a deal to get a piece of the door. So like if the cover, I think it was $5 on most nights, but it was $10 on some nights. We would get half the door.
Wow.
Me and my buddy Jason, and we would split it. But sometimes there'd be like 1,100 people in there. So you're walking away with like a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
A couple thousand being in college and cash every week, leaving the club.
Exactly. And you're at the club having a good time. On
you're
top
like,
of that.
Yeah, like, you always hear people say it's like, "Oh, you get paid to go have a good time." I mean, we were super young and it was just kind of like, coincidental time.
That's sick.
It was sick.
Yeah.
I had this like buzz cut when I looked like a thumb from Spy Kids. Like it was just funny.
You're playing the role.
Yeah. It was a funny time in life. But yeah, I did that. I got super close with that guy that owned that club. He owned a bunch of car dealerships. He was just like an entrepreneur. He did a lot of different stuff. And I just kind of tried to tap in. Him and I had a great relationship, so I tried to tap into anything that I could like provide value on and like help him make money and in turn make myself money. So that's kind of what I did through college. It was helping landlords get the houses rented and then, quote unquote, running this club. We did that. And then probably like maybe like my junior year or sophomore year, one of my buddies, he had dropped out because he had started wholesaling real estate.
Gotcha.
And he ended up crushing it with it. Super successful today. Owns a ton of units in Connecticut. Anyway, he was the one who kind of like inspired me to like learn about wholesaling. He sent me his kind of booklet and course that he had purchased. Mm-hmm. And, I studied up on it and I figured it out.
And what year is this? Or like how old are you when this happened?
This is probably like sometime during my junior year that it was introduced to me.
Got it.
But I didn't really like take it seriously or even attempt to fully learn it until like well into senior year, where I was like, I'm graduating in a few months and I have like no idea what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And just a side note, did you ever think that like real estate would be it? This would be the tool that would get you to where you're at now?
I always was interested in real estate because like growing up, my grandparents had they had a 27-unit apartment building, they had a 6-unit, a 5-unit, and a couple 1 to 4 families in Brooklyn.
Got it.
Properties that they bought, in 1957, 1960, like years ago. So I grew up, like my grandpa had this big ring of keys and he used to like put it on this thing on his belt. And I knew as a child, like what door, every single key opened.
Yeah.
So I was always
couple $100,000 per key.
Yeah, 100%. So I was always interested in it from that standpoint as a child, but I didn't really, like with any college kid, right? Like I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know. I just wanted to make money, but I didn't know. I knew I was interested in real estate, but I didn't know what facet I was trying to enter, right? Like
exactly.
You want to be a sales broker, you want to sell real estate, something on the financing end. You could be in title. Like there's a million different things you could do.
For sure. So let's go back to when you first got that booklet from your friend.
Yep. Started looking into that and really like trying to learn it at some point during my senior year of college. We graduated in, what was it? I guess like May 2018.
Gotcha.
I came home. And through the summer, I got a Manasquan rental house with like 12 of my friends.
Nice.
So, had a great summer. Didn't really do much like studying or trying to learn or anything until the end of the summer. I was like, literally had like a couple $100 to my name. I was broke. I was like, I got to figure this out. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a job lined up. So, I did as much as I could with it. And, I think the first deal that I assigned, I think we made 12,500, and it was a house in Aberdeen, and we did it in probably like I'd say September of 2018, because I started at which I'll get to next,
Yeah.
my job at Progress Capital. I think I started January 1, 2019, so it was a few months before that. I was working with one of my buddies at the time, Jared. We had kind of started or I'm sorry, not Jared, my buddy Tom. We had started an LLC, and we were trying to do it together. I think we got like, I had gotten a deal done myself, then him and I did a couple deals, and then I did.
You're just selling real estate at this point, or
no? So you're wholesaling, right? So we were. The idea of that is to find a property off market, ideally, that is, you can get under contract for less than it's worth.
Yeah.
Right. So what we would do, I mean, we tried to do a million different things. Like, we had pulled absentee homeowner lists and sent out postcards, like direct mail marketing to people's houses, which was like kind of inexpensive, but we didn't really get anywhere with it. We did that a few times. And then one day I again, like super broke post college. I was like, what's the best way? How am I going to get people to call me without spending a ton of money in doing so? And one night I was just sitting there, and I went to Home Depot, and I bought like these like rectangular and like octagon looking signs. And I just took a Sharpie and wrote house for sale. I think I wrote like a house for sale 180K or 200. It was a very low number.
Yeah.
And I got an app on my phone that was like a different phone number. And I just wrote this phone number on it. And I did 3 of them, and I put it at the Homedale bus stop, which I used to take the bus to the city for my internship during college. I put it at the train, and I put it at the boat in Belford.
Smart.
Thinking like, how many, like people in business and entrepreneurs can I hit without spending like any money?
Yeah.
And I put these signs up, and nothing happened for like a day or two, and then I got like 10 calls on this other line.
Wow.
And it was, I think one of them was this elderly lady who was like looking for a house for her granddaughter, but the other 9, and the majority of them were people that were doctors, lawyers, attorneys, whatever they were.
Yeah.
But they also did fix and flips on the side,
Got
or they
it.
had some investment properties on the side. Then I didn't get a call for a couple days, and somebody had ripped down all the signs. So like I did that 2 more times. I think I did it 3 times total. We'll just go to Home Depot, get them, write them, put them up. But I accumulated like 6 or 7 guys, probably half of which I still talk to today, that were doing fix and flips. They were building ground up construction, single families, multifamilies. Like they were, investors, general contractors in the area, and they were actively buying. So I think I did 5 or 6 wholesale deals total. Did 2 with my partner, and like, I want to say like 3 or 4 on my own. So I didn't do that many of them. It was a short span of time that I was really doing this. It was like, probably the end of summer 2018 to the end of the year.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it was funny how that happened, because we tried doing direct mail marketing. We tried doing this, we tried doing that. We spent not a crazy amount of money, but like $2-3 a pop at that age. Like, it was a lot of money. It was
sure.
like all we had, and it didn't work. And then like the most low level thing, like going to get a sign at Home Depot, I'm pretty sure I saw something on like Instagram that made me think like, what's the most basic thing that I can do? And I just kind of did it. But anyway, that happened. I had some money in my pocket, and one of the last guys that I flipped a contract to, he was like, you should go learn how to leverage debt, right? Learn how to finance real estate. Pretty much every person buying real estate leverages debt and needs financing. And if you ever want to own real estate one day, you're going to need it too.
For sure.
So I think I was just like on Indeed, and I was looking around, and I found this company, Progress Capital, that was based in Tinton Falls. I was living in Middletown at the time, so like 5-minute ride, 7-minute ride from my house. And it was funny because going through, when I was in college, I had an internship at my aunt, this bank that my aunt worked at, BNY Mellon in New York City. And I did it for 1 summer, and I took the bus there and back every single day, and it was the worst thing on the planet. And I remember coming home telling my dad, like, I'm going to find a job in and around Monmouth County. Like, there's no way I'm commuting to the city. Yeah. He was like, John, you're crazy. Like, just take the safe route. Like, you're never going to find a job that's good paying, like this close to the house. And then a couple months later, boom, found this job. I think I found it on Indeed, had an interview. Great people, honestly, in my opinion, some of the best people that you could work for and learn from. I'm pretty sure I got my job offer like a day or 2 after I had an interview, because like kind of just went in and like told them my experience. I was like, I don't know anything about financing, but just tell me what I got to do to make money, like, and I'll follow your footsteps. Like, I'll learn it. Just tell me exactly what I have to do. So I started there. I'm pretty sure I started there January 1, 2019. Me and a girl started on the same day. 3 of us started. One person was for marketing, and then the girl started on my team. We were like analysts / processors on a team of 3 people that were existing. Progress was like a family type owned company. Kathy owned it. She had 2 sons, Brad and Brian. Each of them ran teams, and there was a couple other teams in the office. So I was on Brad's team.
Gotcha.
It was Brad, Frank, his right hand, and then Gabby, who taught me honestly a lot of what I know. She was like processor, but she was like a beast of a processor. Like, she was already deep in the weeds, knew everything. And then me and another girl started that same day. Other girl didn't last very long. She lasted like 2-3 weeks because it was intense.
Yeah.
They were doing, probably when I started, I would say they had to be doing like 30 million a month in loan volume, which is, it's a lot, but it could not be, depending on like your average deal size, right? That could be $31 million deals, or it could be a $10 million deal and a couple,
Exactly.
2, 3, 5.
And they're also not personally funding it. They're connecting with banks and lenders.
Personally funding it. So that company.
Oh, they were.
I'm sorry, not personally funding
Got
it.
it.
They were brokering it. So they had 3 facets of that company. It was Progress Capital, which was the debt brokerage side, right? Middleman, arranging debt services. Yeah. Then there was Progress Direct, which was our hard money lending platform, where they actually were lending the money. But they would do that to like existing clients, low leverage, non-risky or less risky deals.
Gotcha.
It was like not a mainstream of business, I would say. And then they had Progress Realty Partners, which was the acquisition syndication side. Kathy, Brad, and Brian, they would obviously put money into the deals. They'd raise some money from existing clients, and anybody that wanted to put money into a syndication, and they would buy real estate. Nice. I think by the time I left, they had like a 200,000 and 250,000 square foot retail strip in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Wow.
They had like a 180 unit garden style multifamily apartment complex in, I want to say, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. They had some medical office stuff. So they had like a couple different assets.
Yeah.
But I was on the debt brokerage side, Progress Capital. That was where I started, and that was where I kind of ended. So anyway, I start on this team, had no idea what I was doing, like knew no terminology. I didn't know anything about anything regarding financing. But, the girl and I who started on the same day, she only lasted a few weeks because it was just it was very intense, and it just wasn't for her.
Yeah.
So I remember, the guy who ran my team, after she had left, he's like, you got a month, like you got to figure it out or get out, like you either get up to speed with us or
put the pressure on
don't. Yeah, because they were doing like a lot. They were doing a lot of volume, and then it was just me and the other processor who, following that comment, I spent probably like 60-70 hours a week in that office. Like, wow. I would wake up, go to that office at 7:30, 8 o'clock, be there till 5:30, 6 o'clock, go home, eat dinner with my family, throw sweatpants on, and drive 8 minutes back to the office and just like crank out emails, underwrite deals, just like try to learn more as fast as I could. And I'd be there till like midnight some nights.
Damn.
And I did this for like, I don't know, probably like a year and a half, 2 years before I like not fully grasped it, but grasped it enough to the point where I was like, all right, I know what I'm doing now. I can like run deals on my own. I don't need nearly as much help as I did. So yeah, I'm at Progress Capital now, started there in, like I said, January 2019. I was on Brad's team probably until like June, I would say June 2021 or 2022. I was on his team processing all his loan volume. And when I started, they were probably doing like 30 million a month or so. By the time I left Brad's team to kind of start my own team within Progress, he was doing like 100 million a month.
Wow. So
it was a lot of volume. It was just like, it was the most rapid learning environment to be in.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, in a relatively short period of time, like a couple years, I saw so much loan volume that a lot of people don't see for many more years. I saw so many different types of loans, different asset classes being acquired, right? Like, different ways to finance a multifamily building versus an industrial building, or, an owner-occupied loan if somebody's buying a restaurant and maybe they're doing like a business startup where they need an SBA 7A loan. Like, so many variations of loan products, asset classes, and the clean deals and the deals that had some hair and needed like a little creative structuring.
Yeah, and
so,
you're just like a sponge taking this all in. Growing,
taking this all in. We had, the office was set up. It was like a box. Offices aligning, everything on the side, and then we would all sit in the middle. We'd called it the pit.
Yeah.
So I just used to sit in there and listen to like every conversation that
Smart.
Gabby, Frank, and Brad had, and I would, be CC'd on I don't even know how many hundreds of emails a day, and I would just look at the questions that were asked and look at how my team would respond and the answers they'd give, how they would show, like how they would model up certain deals and show things in a way that would kind of alleviate the need for a ton of questions from certain lending institutions, and just like the whole process. So I learned a lot, but I learned a lot quick. So yeah, I was on Brad's team probably until like middle of 21. And then I like quote unquote started like my own team. I basically went from, an analyst processor position to like an originator, they call it. You're going to go originate business and bring your own deals in, right?
Yeah.
You split with the house. I had Evan, who was on my team. He was like my analyst, support staff. So I started doing deals, but I didn't start until like June 2021, but that prior January, I knew that in 6 months I was going to kind of leave Brad's team and do my own thing, right?
Yeah.
So, which means, most of the time losing salary and you're just on commission splits.
Yeah.
So, those 6 months, like I just spent multiple times a week. I was just out at every networking event. I was meeting anybody I could, talking to anybody that would listen, and just trying to line up as many, in 6 months, no more salary. We got to line up some deals to close or be closing.
Exactly. So I have 2 questions right there. Sure. Number one, it's not really a question, but the pressure's on in that 6 months. So you're going to make it happen. Your back's against the wall, which is like good in a way. The other thing is, who's like your ideal person to network with? Because I guess it's tough to just find someone who owns a bank or owns
No,
like
100%. Pressure was definitely on. Like I said, from graduating college, I was fortunate enough to like be able to learn wholesaling enough to get a couple bucks in my pocket.
Yeah.
Was fortunate enough to get a job offer from this company, and was even more fortunate enough to learn at such a rapid speed. And then, a couple years later, be able to do it essentially not on my own, but have my own team, kind of go that route. So the pressure was definitely on. And like during this time, we had a lot of family things going on. My mom was sick. So it was like, it was a lot more than, oh, wow, I'm broke and a post-grad college kid. Like, I got to figure this out. There was a lot of other things happening in the background that really pushed me to like lit a fire under my ass. So going on like the lender side of it, right? Having worked at Progress Capital for years, obviously they had like an existing base and foundation of lenders, right? All the local community banks in and around New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, multiple different states. Obviously I had a CRM, I had Salesforce when I worked there. So I worked off the initial foundation of lenders that they had. And then as I learned what different lending institutions should be quoting these different deals, I would reach out to new lenders, and I would just kind of build off of that database and create my own relationships with these lenders. And it was something, when I first started, like it was something as simple as like one of the first deals that I financed was, I think it was like a Dunkin'. It was some type of like triple net single tenant or an Arby's. It was something in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I had no local community bank contacts in like wherever it was in Michigan or Indiana, whatever it was. So I literally just went on Google Maps, went to that address, typed in banks, and I would just go down the list of banks and just not cold call, but I would call these banks and just say, hey, I'm a commercial mortgage broker. One of my clients is looking to acquire an asset. I'd like to see if you guys would be interested in quoting the debt. And then they would get me to a commercial loan officer. Sometimes it would take like a few days to get to the right person, have them review the deal. So it was a little like time consuming, but I honestly just did that for the most part, for months and months on end, years on end, deals on end. And as time went on, obviously like I built out like a pretty big database of lenders.
For sure.
And then, we'll get into like the whole social media aspect, but having, we post all of our deal closings, right? So like on LinkedIn, Instagram, a lot of lenders, pretty much weekly will DM us or reach out to us and they're like, hey, we're a lending shop. We're doing fix and flip loans, 1 to 5 million. We're doing DSCR loans. We're doing this, we're doing that. We'd love to review some of the deals that you have.
So now it's more inbound.
Yeah, it kind of shifted a little bit from like, I still outbound reach out to a ton of lenders, but yeah, kind of like, there's some inbound volume there. So that's like the lending side, right? Having the relationships of where to send the deals. And then on the client side, how do you, it was hard. How do you find guys or individuals or institutions that are looking to acquire property, need debt, and are going to trust you more than the guy who's been doing it longer than I've been alive, right? Like, it's hard.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough that I was Progress Capital, the company that I was with, had a great reputation. I mean, I think the whole company was probably just under 20 people, but we did more volume as a company than most, divisions or teams of way more people at much larger institutions. So we had like good, I guess you'd call it market share in terms of the volume that we were doing, but we just had like a really good name. We were in a lot of different communities, pretty well known. So I made a lot of relationships through that.
Nice.
That carried over into, like me creating obviously my own team, and then ultimately creating JL Capital. But I would say like the people that I chased the most when I didn't have any deals was sales brokers, because 9 times out of 10, if you're selling a building and you're pitching me on the building, first thing I'm going to do is figure out what the debt looks like, right? How much cash do I need to close? What's my interest rate look like? And then what is my monthly net cash flow every month after expenses, right?
Yeah.
If you're telling me, if I got to put $400,000 down to close this deal, but I'm only going to be making $1,500 a month, after expenses are paid and after the mortgage is paid net, obviously terrible deal. I'm not going to do that. So like a lot, first thing anybody's going to do is either call their bank, call their mortgage broker. So what I would do with these sales brokers is I'm like, look, if you guys are pushing, if you're promoting these deals on or off market, they have like an offering memorandum, something that shows pictures on the property, the rents, the expenses, information on the neighborhood. So I would tell them like, hey, if you want to include this little snippet of financing, like this is what the debt looks like from a high level. They got to put 30% down. The rate would be, it looks like 6.25 on a 30-year amortization, to try to give them a leg up on other sales brokers, just to make, that way I can have a quick conversation. If somebody's selling a building, they can have their client call me. I can have a quick conversation with them, and then they're the sales broker is that much closer to getting the property under contract, right? You're like taking a kind of a step out of the process. But sales brokers was who I still go after a lot. I have a lot of great relationships with a lot of great local and some national sales brokers, but accountants, attorneys, title agents, right? All people that, we have a lot of friends that own some of these companies, and a lot of friends that are, accountants and attorneys and whatnot. But I would say like, just everybody involved in like the real estate circle transaction, right? So you have, like we said, we have the sales broker, you have a title agent, you have, you probably have another sales broker on the buyer side or the seller side if it's a purchase.
Yeah.
You have title, you have usually an accountant that I'm requesting financial information from my client. You have usually a buyer side attorney, you have a seller side attorney. So all these people know that I'm handling the financing for the transaction, right? So as quick and responsive as I am, and as communicative as I am, and as good of a job that I do, it's allowing all 7 or 8 of those people to get paid quicker on the deal.
Exactly.
Right? So like it's easy for me to kind of gain every single deal I do, there's like 2 or 3 new people that I'm going to meet. And I always make it a point to reach out to, even the sales broker on the seller side, somebody that I'm not even dealing with the seller, but hey, let me reach out. I know you guys you helped, my buddy was a sales broker, put this deal together. I'm happy to be an asset and provide any value to you and your clients on any other deals you're selling.
For sure. And then you kind of build a reputation through that. And it's like a compound effect. People start asking, hey, do you know this guy? And then from what I've heard, you're amazing at networking, and I could just tell from, this is our first time meeting today for the viewers, and this guy brings me merch, like a sweatshirt and stuff. And it's just like hospitality, you're taking care of people. But
100%.
How has building a network and meeting the right people and shaking the right hands kind of brought you to where you are today?
I think networking is like my whole business has been built off obviously the foundation that I had when I started my old company, but like the network and the word of mouth. Like word of mouth is honestly how I get most of my business. We've never spent any money on lead generation or anything like that. I've never bought, leads.
Wow.
It's all just been word of mouth. I would say probably like 75 to 80+% of our clients, maybe even more. We have like 100% retention rate. I'm doing multiple of my clients. I do multiple deals a year for? I have some guys that, they have huge portfolios and we're just cycling We're just cycling, through and refinancing
Yeah.
7 to 10 new deals every couple years.
Wow.
So from like a client perspective, I always have clients referring me their family members, their partners, people in their community and their network. So I think that's one standpoint of it. Networking, though, as a whole, like we were talking about before, we've been the last few years since I started my own team at Progress and then ultimately moved to JL Capital. We have been throwing a lot of like networking events and co-sponsoring and co-hosting different networking events. And I think that is like probably the biggest thing that I attribute to like the success that we're having and that we've had recently.
Yeah.
Just networking as a whole, it's huge. I think it's important to go into rooms where opportunity can find you. Like when I first started, I was attending networking events without like fully knowing I knew what I was speaking about, but not, I'd always be like, oh, what if they ask me a question about this? Like, I don't really know. But
Yeah.
I always just put myself in the uncomfortable rooms and where opportunity could find me. So I think attending local networking events and stuff are they're always helpful, but also just partnering with like, the top individuals or companies in certain areas in your network in your community, right? Like I have great relationship. One of my best friends, Eric Panecki and David Choi, they're up in Newark. They own a wholesaling firm and a DSCR lending firm. All the commercial deals that they get that they're either assigning the contracts for, or the commercial deals or inquiries that they get for the DSCR lending company that they can't facilitate, or it would be better suited for a bank or a credit union or a different type of lender, they'll push it to me and I'll broker it out, right? So I get a lot of business that way. Anthony Muscarella, great friend of mine, he runs a division of Absolute Home Mortgage. So they do like primary residence loans. They get a lot of investment purpose, 1 to 4 family residential investment financing requests, as well as commercial stuff. So his entire division, I think he's got probably 200 or 300 people in his division.
Wow.
I would say probably 20% of them, 20% of them I talk to pretty much like weekly or very close to.
Nice.
So I think networking with the people not only that can send you business, but you can obviously send business to local to you, I think is huge. I think I think it's super important. It's been a big, it's honestly, I would say how we get probably more than 3/4 of our business just from like referral network. And I give out a lot of referral fees, but in my eyes, I'd rather have a little bit of something than 100% of nothing, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to bring me something that I didn't have yesterday, and I and my team are going to eat off it, then you can too. And you also like, you incentivize people without them even realizing to now go look for business for you in a way.
By giving.
By giving. Like we've always said, and I got to give this to David and Eric because they always said this initially, like lead with value, right? So going back to, I'm popping around a little bit, but going back to networking events that we were throwing. Yeah. So when I was at Progress Capital, we threw this first event. It was called Deals and Dollars, right? Eric came up with the name. The idea was we had just recently been to so many like stuffy networking events that were, it was like, it felt like a college open bar. Like you go there, you meet a couple people, you have a couple drinks, like it was good. But you didn't, I never left there being like, wow, like I really just gained some value, or I met somebody that I really think I could do business with. So, we were like, how can we throw a networking event that is fun, yet still interactive, pushes people to want to work with one another and provide value in their resources to one another, and just like promote this whole like go-giver mentality.
Exactly.
Right. We threw our first event, I want to say like March. It was probably like March 2023 or March. Yeah, it was probably March 2023. We threw the first event. One of Progress Capital's clients had built a 750 unit apartment building in Jersey City, and it had probably 12,000 square feet of event venue space on the first floor. So he actually gave it to us for free, and we threw what ended up being almost a 400 person event. We had DJ, we had open bar, we had food, there was a magician there was like the live saxophone or violinist I think we had at that one. Photo booth, step and repeats, the whole thing.
Yeah, make it attractive to come.
100%. And we had all real estate and honestly entrepreneurs, like some business owners in there, but there's a lot of real estate people, right? You had sales brokers, on the residential and commercial side. You had mortgage brokers. There's a couple of my buddies that we do the same thing. They were there. We had title companies, title agents. We had insurance brokers. We had, trying to think who else. I mean, accountants, attorneys, like the list goes on.
Yeah.
So through this huge event, feedback was incredible. And following that event, for me at least, was when like business really like ramped up for me. I was just getting reached out to by like a lot more people.
Nice.
People that they were like, "Oh, I was at your event," and like I don't even know that we even met like in person that night.
They just know you through the event.
Yeah, like
sick.
it's tying your name to different stuff and collaborating with like the people that are doing stuff. It's huge. It's like crucial to a business trying to get off the ground. If you're
For
trying
sure.
I was lucky that when I came from Progress Capital, like I kind of had a business within a business already.
Mm-hmm.
So like starting my own business, starting essentially doing the same thing just under a different entity and different name that now I owned 100% of, as opposed to working for them. It's like I had kind of like a leg up. Like I had deals in process. There was already a flow of business. I was just, sending emails from a different email, and the name on the door switched.
Exactly. So I want to just take a quick pause. If you were to redo it again, would you go back and work for someone like that and learn the process, learn with great people, or would you just start on your own and jump into it and trial and error and learn through?
I would without a doubt not change what I did.
Yeah.
I probably, I was going to say I probably would have branched off on my own a little bit earlier, but I can't even say that's true. Because when I was at Progress Capital, they were getting bought out. From 2022 on, there was a talk about them getting bought out.
Mm-hmm.
And we would merge with like a Marcus and Millichap, a CBRE, Cushman Wakefield, one of the larger, like 50,000 employee publicly traded companies. All of which that had debt divisions or debt brokering divisions, but we were kind of, going to plug into one of them and kind of just expand it. It wasn't until I think it was like July 2024 that I was actually in Aruba on family vacation, and my boss at the time called me and was like, "We're kind of coming to like an agreement. You have like 1 week to let us know if you're going to come or not, because if you don't come, it changes like the terms of the agreement."
Yeah.
So I came home that weekend. I had like 3 or 4 days to kind of decide, like, am I going to go with this merge and take like the offer that I'm getting, or am I going to do what I always wanted to do and just like start it on my own? Prior to this, I had a lot of these companies try to offer me jobs throughout, from like 2021, middle of 2021 on. But I had such loyalty to Progress Capital because they took me in when I knew nothing, and they taught me everything, and they were like the best people to work for on the planet. So I wasn't looking to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I never, you never want to, not that I would have burnt the bridge, but you never want to burn the bridge ever. But this buyout was kind of like the perfect segue that if this is truly what I wanted to do, like now's the time to do it.
Exactly.
Right. And I had a couple meetings with this company that was buying us out. I think I had 2. And then, by the end of that next meeting, I already knew kind of what my decision was, just based on like the structure of which they were proposing. So I left, and I left that meeting, and I called, my team, my boss over at Progress, and I just, told them, look, I think I'm just gonna do what I always wanted to do, and I'm just gonna branch off on my own and create JL Capital or whatever. I didn't even think I had a name at that point. But yeah, back to the networking thing. I've always, like, for the last, I don't even know how many years, like since I started at Progress, I was always out multiple times a week, just like at networking events, and just even going to places like Gabriella's, going to the Butcher's Block, going to places that I knew that not wealthy people hung out with, but entrepreneurs and business people and real estate, just trying to like get around that. Everybody always says you're a product of your environment, right? So like we had this guy on our podcast one day, and he's Grant Cardone's pilot. He said to us, he was like, if you want to be a pilot, go hang around pilots. If you want to be in real estate, go hang around real estate people. Yeah. Like, you're a product of your environment. And, I think that just being in the same room as these people, even if you don't know anything about what you're trying to do, like it's such like a crucial component of it.
For sure. Definitely.
But,
and I know another big part of your company's negotiation. So I want you to kind of dive into not your tactics, but where your mindset is when you go into a negotiation, and what are green flags, what are red flags, some things you look out for.
So the negotiations for me are more so like on the lender side, right? So for example, you're buying a 20-unit apartment building.
Mm-hmm.
You say, John, they're looking for 1.8 million for the purchase price. Here's the rents, here's the expenses, and then I put everything into like our underwriting model, and then I can see, all right, well, the value on my end is coming out to closer to like 1.6. I don't think you should offer more than that. If you're at 1.6, I can get you a loan amount of, let's say, 75% of the purchase price, right? So I'll give kind of like a high-level overview to my client so that they can go back to the sales broker or the seller and try to negotiate that deal, right? And I'll give them some information via email, alongside like an underwriting model that shows like, hey, these are the numbers we're coming up with, and this is why. Like, this is where it's originating from. Once a client or somebody gets an accepted offer, they'll usually come back to me and say, hey, we're good to go. We're at, $1,650,000 purchase price. I'll put the extra $50K down, whatever it is. Okay. So now I'll put together like a nice package to send to lenders, usually comprised of like a loan model, some, personal financial details on the borrower, how much real estate do they own? What does their liquidity and net worth look like?
Yeah.
I'll put together a nice package in email, and I'll send it out to, sometimes 5 lenders, sometimes 10, sometimes 20. It just depends on like where it is, what it is, right? If you sent me like a multifamily deal in Red Bank, I know the top 5 banks that I should go to, or top 5 banks and credit unions that I should go to, based on the quotes that I've gotten from them recently, and like, what I know is out there in the market.
Exactly.
I'll send it out to them, and then that's where like negotiations kind of start on my end. A lender will say, hey, we're at this loan amount, a 6.5% interest rate, we're going to charge 1% origination fee, and here's the rest of our terms, right? I'll get a handful of terms from a couple different lenders, and then I'll go through and I'll kind of go back to each one and try to sharpen the pencil. Hey, can you do a half a point on the half of 1% origination fee instead of 1%? The rate's at 6.5. These 3 guys are at 6.125 and 6.25, but you're a little bit more competitive on your prepayment penalty, right? Can you come down a quarter point to be more in line with this?
So there's a lot of moving and different factors that go into it.
Yeah, like there's a lot of different pieces of like your typical, loan quote for a commercial purchase or commercial refinance, right?
Gotcha.
So there's like loan amount, the interest rate you're going to get, the amortization, how many years is the payment, drawn out upon, like 25 or 30. That's going to make your monthly payment higher or lower, which is going to hurt or improve your monthly return, an annual return. Then you have like the fee that the bank charges, right? If we're doing $1 million loan amount and the bank charges a half of 1% instead of 1 point, it's a $5,000 fee instead of $10,000. So now that gives me a little bit of room when I charge my 1% broker fee. If the lender's also at 1%, there's a good chance the client's going to try to chew me down a little bit on my fee, which I'm usually pretty flexible on, because I've always believed it's a volume game. But that's kind of where I negotiate with these lenders, right? And in essence, some of them are probably going to see this and not love it, but like you're putting lenders up against one another. You're like, hey, I have this and this over here, but you are more competitive here, and I've worked with you guys. I've closed many more deals with you than these guys, so I'd feel more comfortable pushing it your way. Can you help me? Can you help me get there? Right? Can you get the interest rate down here? Can you shave off here?
Exactly.
It's not like in my eyes, it's less. I try to flip it from like negotiating and chewing them down to, hey, I'm trying to do more business with you. I want to send this deal to you. Help me help you. Help me get there. Like where are you more flexible on, and how can I, present that to my client to promote that this is the better option? And, it's not always about, I've had a lot of deals before where I've had clients take my recommendation and take something that's maybe like 0.125 or 0.25 higher than what would clearly look like the best option, just because like certainty of execution. I've worked with these guys. I'm one of their biggest brokers. I just closed a recent deal or a similar deal with them. I have certainty of execution with them. Like this isn't going to change, so I try to turn it from, like chewing these lenders down and negotiating with them to, hey, I'm trying to send you more business. Like, like help me help you,
Exactly.
Volume with the lenders is like, I have 20 or 30 banks and credit unions local to like not even local to Monmouth County, local to like New Jersey that I could name. But I there's probably 10 or 12 of them, like 20 or 25% of them that I close the majority of business with.
Yeah.
Maybe like a little bit more, like 50%. But obviously, I try to work with the same lenders as much as possible, because now I'm a large source of their business and revenue for
Exactly.
them, right? So they're going to maybe quote me a little bit more competitively than they're going to quote you if you just walk into the bank or,
For sure.
pick up the phone and call them.
Exactly.
So like there's that angle too. There's not like too much negotiating with clients. It's what I do is I'm trying to, client wants X. It's my job to tell them X is possible or Y is possible, right? And then it's my job to get them as close to that as I can, or check all their boxes, right? Like check all their boxes maybe with some creative structuring that they wouldn't know to ask for, or they don't even know exists.
Exactly.
So
yeah, that's cool stuff. This is a hard industry. It's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. What's your mindset like when you're going to work? What's your work ethic like? Talk to me more about John Libretti's work ethic.
I would say that I'm just anytime when I open my eyes, like what I do most of my day is I'm on the phone like all day long.
Yeah.
I have a lot of obviously meetings in person, but I'm on the phone all day long. I'm following up with clients that maybe sent me. We looked at a deal like 2 weeks ago, but it didn't come to fruition.
Mhm.
So I'm following up with them. I have a list of, kind of like follow-ups. That's the first thing I do every morning. Just reach out to anybody that I'm waiting on something for. I'll just send out. So it's at the top of their inbox, send out a quick follow-up. Or honestly, sometimes I'll do it at like midnight or 1 a.m. So it's
Yeah.
the first thing on
Smart.
their inbox. The most important thing that I think is which is something that I have not lacked on, but it's something that we're trying to build on, is like it's constant communication that's needed between like all sides, right? Like we get a crazy influx of deals, multiple different deals from multiple different sources for multiple different clients sometimes. So for me, it's more of like not like an organizational thing. Like we have in our CRM, every conversation that we have, it's all logged, but it's more so like there's just not enough hours in the day to like get in touch with every single person, right? Call 10 lenders on 10 different lenders on 5 different deals. It's like 50 conversations to have. Sometimes obviously you can't get everybody on the phone right when you want to. So like, I think the time management thing is not time management, but just there's not enough time in the day in order to kind of have all the conversations and do what we need to do. But I think a big thing about, and this is something that I am still working on and learning, is like your team is super crucial, right? Before this, like I never had to hire, fire. I never had to build out a team. I never had to do any of that. I was at a company. I started, my own team, and I was kind of given an analyst who was one of my super close friends, and we crushed it together.
Nice.
So like going on your own, there's a lot of other stuff that you have to think about that you just like didn't think about before. So now it's like, you're handling payroll, you're handling marketing, you're handling outreach for new business, you're handling, marketing of closed deals. So you're doing like and you're trying to look for talent. You're trying to look for people that can help you grow your business, people that are going to come in and originate business, and the support staff, people that are going to be able to process the loans and process paperwork and follow up and do this and do that. Why you have to do all that,
Wearing all the hats,
while you're trying to work on the deals that you have. So like that was something that I got pretty like jammed up in when I first started. But I guess that's with any business. Anytime you start, your own thing, there's going to be more hats to wear. It's going to be like, countless hours of work, like 100%. But it's, I think a big thing is like making sure that something that I lacked a little bit on in the beginning. Now I think we're constantly improving, learning new stuff every day, always. But we're a little bit more stable now, whereas in the beginning, like it was a little hectic. Like I didn't have the help that I needed, and it was hard because you could the same way you could build a business up with like good reputation and word of mouth, you could demolish it 10 times quicker with like not communicating and like things like that going.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Yeah, a lot of things going on
for sure. We could wrap up soon, but a couple points I want to hit on is number one, your overall advice to the viewers, whether they're younger, older, your younger self, anything just kind of you want to wrap up and put out there.
Yeah, I would say that when I was trying to decide if I wanted to go with the company that was buying my company or if I wanted to start it on my own, it's super scary. I had no idea how to do half the things that we're doing today. But you learn along the way. You bite off more than you can chew and figure out how to chew it. Like you see that stuff on Instagram all the day. I love that stuff because I have like a ton of different quotes that I have written in my notes, and I just reread these things, and it really keeps me going sometimes. But advice that I would give is like if you have your heart and your mind set on something, and you're at a point where, like we are in our age, or where I was like a few years ago, where you may not have a family and kids or girlfriend or wife yet, you don't have like crazy financial responsibilities, like then is the time to try something, right? And you may have to try 5 different things and it's not going to work, right? For me, I didn't try 5 different things. I tried one thing that took a while to work, and I hated what I was doing in the beginning because it was just like a lot of repetitive, busy work, stuff that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
But obviously the necessary steps needed in order to learn. That would be like my big piece of advice is that, bite off more than you can chew, figure out how to chew it, and align yourself with the right people, put yourself in the right environment, people that are doing more than you, be around people that make more than you, doing more than you, whether it's what you want to do or not, just be around people with that mindset because it'll bring you up, it'll just uplift you without you even knowing it. And if you're somebody that, if you want to start your own business, yeah, you could go out and start it without working for a company, doing that for, learning from another company. And then, it's definitely a lot easier to do that. I think it is, if you have the opportunity, it's definitely more beneficial to do it that way, right?
Yeah.
To kind of learn the inner workings and then,
systems,
learn the systems, the structures that clearly work,
Yeah.
Do the same thing, be successful with it, have your own team within another, having your own company, quote unquote, within another company with like little to no overhead.
Yeah.
That's
So you
like starting a business without having to pay to start one, right?
Exactly. And then if the company gets sued, it's not your problem.
100%. It's less liability.
Yeah.
And then just to touch on like one last thing, like you always said, you said before, you talked about being a middleman. Somebody told me, I don't remember who it was, but it was a long time ago, and they were like, you could literally make $1 billion being a middleman. And for some reason, I'm sure there's a ton of people that said that, but somebody said it to me and it really stuck. And then like even throughout college, like just like finding tenants for this guy to rent his house out to, make a little bit, right? You're in the middle. So it's you're not the one lending the money, or you're not the one actually like selling the product or whatever it is. You're providing a service, you're providing, as much value as possible, bringing, A to B, and you could do it with anything. It doesn't just have to be real estate. I think, a middleman, you can make $1 billion being a middleman. Like,
100%.
Keep the liability low, try to keep your overhead low, and just, do something that you're passionate about too. I was never really passionate about, I wasn't passionate about underwriting loans when I first started it, but I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I was like, this isn't what this whole business is. I just need to master this in order to be able to go out and, originate and bring in business. So don't jump the steps, follow the process, be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Because it wasn't until a couple of years ago, pretty recently, that things really started kind of working for us on what we were doing. And yeah, that's
awesome.
Those are some big takeaways. Have always been for me.
That's great, man. And real quick, what can we expect from you the next 10, 15, 20 years? What are some of your big goals you got?
I would say a big goal over the next 5 years is to have, I would say to have not necessarily a certain number of people on my team, but I would say to have at least 5 originators total that are doing, ideally, 50 to 100 million a year each. Hopefully over the course of the next 10, 15, the debt brokerage side hopefully runs itself at some point in the next couple of years, maybe 2 to 3 years. When I say run itself, we have originators, we have support staff, and I can kind of focus on not needing to run my deals as much, but trying to, go out and buy real estate, right? Create, whether it's not, if it's not JL Capital, if it's JL Holdings, right? Just create, kind of mirror what my old company did and a lot of, my friends' companies do, right? You have something that makes the cash, something that drives the revenue, and then you pour the revenue into whether it's, relending money back out or buying assets. We're buying properties, we could do our own loans,
Exactly.
Try to leverage what we are already doing and the information that we already have to kind of just expand in other comparable verticals.
Great. Yeah, awesome, man. It was a pleasure sitting down with you. I hope you guys enjoyed. John, if they want to follow you, where could they find you?
On Instagram, just John Libretti at JOHNLIBRETTI, and then JL Capital. I think it's just at JL Capital,
Awesome.
JLCAPITAL with an underscore after.
Cool. And we'll throw all the links in the description. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. John Libretti.
Thank you.